Hello, everyone. This is Rick with the CyberPro podcast. Industry leaders share their insights because hackers never sleep. We're excited today. Rob, tell us who you are and why you're awesome.
Wow. Um, Rob DeCicco, worked in professional services surrounding digital forensics. I'm a testifying expert in digital forensics, a lot around intellectual property theft. Um, Sometimes the line is blurred between digital forensics and cybersecurity, depending on who's labeling it, or cyber events and incident response. I've been in that space for a good 25 years or so. Got my introduction to forensics and cybersecurity at National Security Agency in Fort Meade. I spent most of my time in Linthicum, which is where the digital forensics lab is, the DCFL, DoD lab, and worked a lot around policy. I was in the IAD directorate, which is information assurance. As you know, or I suspect you know, I mean, the at the time there were only two directorates, which was signals intercept and information assurance. I was in information assurance, so my clients would be like the army, like making sure that the communications that were happening were between the intended parties only, and that no one else was listening. The other side, SIGINT, were picking off communications. And then while I was there, a third directorate emerged, which was called R&D, and we could talk about what they do offline, but it's a little bit different. But the I don't want to go too deep into NSA, but something that I saw, DoD does a lot of things great and a lot of things not so great, but certainly made a lot of sense to have people migrate back and forth from intercept to assurance, because that's almost like, I know you're a volleyball player. You're never not, right? I can't say you're a former volleyball player, but sometimes you're playing offense, sometimes you're playing defense, and you certainly can learn from both sides. And that has migrated its way all the way into the private sector. That the best way to go about securing networks is to know how what attacks are happening, or the emerging things. So
Rob,
that's who I am.
you brought something up because it's an interesting term, information assurance. I feel like in cybersecurity and information security, we've gone away from information assurance as a term, and it's really been replaced with regulatory compliance, GRC, all these other terms. Why do you think that's happening, and why should we maybe focus a little bit more on information assurance?
That's a great question, right? Why have we drifted away from it? Because it's so hard to do. It's hard to do. It requires collaboration. It's absolutely integral that there's collaboration to ensure information assurance. And that's it's everybody's job. It's not just IT or whatever the latest sort of perception is. Like, oh, IT is securing the network. Oh, there's a firewall, or there's whatever. Like and it's not. It's the tribe. It's everybody has to be involved in it, and it happens outside of the enterprise. It's happening at all times, and ever since the enterprise, it was happening long before the pandemic, but the pandemic kind of accelerated the four walls of the corporation being eroded, and people working from home, and all these other devices, and introducing a different attack vectors and a different avenues of attack. So it became risk management, because it's like, we got to keep the business going, and everybody's at home or everybody's traveling and all this, but we can't. We just can't. We're in pursuit of assurance, but like, it's just risk. Let's just label it as risk. But that's my opinion. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why.
I love it. So I actually want you to define what electronic discovery or e-discovery is to the audience. It's a term that I think people don't hear as much anymore today, although it's constantly being used. Like I did it. I did e-discovery. I did investigations for a while. You were kind of an expert at it. So what is it? Why is it important? And what are we using it for today?
I mean, it's evolved. Electronic discovery is, let's see if I can define it as you put me on the spot. It's certainly much more widely accepted now and understood by the lay person because everybody's communicating with email and texts and so on. Discovery in the legal sense is, documents and correspondence and related to a legal matter that need to be reviewed by legal eyes, and then they determine, is it relevant, is it not relevant, is it privileged, is it this? They put all these labels on them. And right around 2006, electronic communication became so pervasive that they changed the federal rules of civil procedure and included electronic discovery. And then data sets just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But at one point, like email wasn't considered important. Like, and now that's like all of it. And then at one point, texts weren't considered important, or cell phones, or mobile wasn't important. And now it's like, well, everything is on there. At one point, I like to call it ephemeral messaging. Was like, they're not really talking about business on there. And it's like, yeah, but that's where the most sensitive stuff is. So signals made its way around the Twitter sphere or whatever X sphere, WhatsApp, Snapchat, you name it, right? Wicker. So all those things, they just keep reintroducing more and more platforms and more devices. And then it has to be organized, indexed, searched by keywords. Now you'd use concepts, which is pretty, you could do some cool stuff. And that then it's boiled down to relevant documents, which make them their relevant documents or emails make their way into a legal proceeding and get presented to judges, juries, and so on. And then some adjudication happens from there. But it's basically boiling electronic discovery in a nutshell is grabbing everything that could be potentially relevant that's in electronic form, getting it to a way that it can be searchable, massaging it in the instance of it may not be perfectly searchable, indexing it, and then making it searchable and pulling out things. And then from there, you just sort it from there. And it's usually a corollary of it. It can be a corollary of an investigation. It can come after the fact of a cybersecurity event, an incident response. Now we want to see what they talked about before or after. So.
Yeah. Rob, let's pivot just a little bit. I want to learn a little bit more about Quint. What do you do there? How did you get started? Kind of what makes it awesome to work with? Why people should be looking at it?
It came about. So I was working in a professional services firm, like a big one, international, and we were doing. I was working primarily with investigations, electronic discovery, digital investigations, and doing a lot of expert testimony surrounding primarily electronic communications, intellectual property theft, things like that. Then got to the birth of Quint was that I was just getting conflicted out of cases. So in the world of litigation, there's parties involved, and then there's a lot of sub parties. And if the company you're working for, or if you're somehow there's a perception that you could be conflicted out between one of the two parties, you can't work on it. And I started missing out on some things that were really interesting. So I separated and formed my own company, which is Quint. Why is it awesome? Because if you've seen Jaws, and we're coming up on the 50th anniversary right now, and there are people who haven't seen it. They'll look right there. There it is. Right.
There it is.
Quint, coming up with the name had to do with a lot of people used to call and say I had that kind of attitude like him, like, let me see your hands. But it was the when all else fails, they go to Quint and they're like, okay, we're going to pay him to get this done. And his whole thing is like, oh, I'll find it for 3, but I'll catch it and kill it for 10. That's kind of what was happening with me is like, they had these cases, they were coming to me and it's like, well, I mean, I could look at it, but if you want to retain me to write an expert report and defend my opinions and everything, like I can't need to kind of go alone or bring a couple of good guys like Steve Brody and Matt Hooper. Even so, that's what came about. Why is it awesome? Because I have a lot less restrictions that you would have in a giant bureaucratic organization. Um, and I've got an office in San Diego. I'm out here in Denver now, got an office in New York, and I'm able to service clients pretty regularly. And yeah, it's great. And I get, I know that you were Carlsbad guy as far as your
Was.
time in the water. I'm a little, my haunt is a little bit south of there. And as you both, we know, we're not going to, neither one of us will reveal where we spent most of our time in the water. But my spot was a little bit south of where your spot was. And
I love it.
it's classified. We'll put it that way.
I love it. So you have tons of experience with testifying in cases, digital forensics, e-discovery, whatever, right? You name the case law. What are you seeing today that people just aren't paying attention to and they should?
Well, the tools, you don't have to be a real sophisticated diabolical genius to gain access to sensitive information or like steal things. Um, and with AI, I mean, like any good tool in the wrong hands can be dangerous. And so I think we're seeing, I mean, you spend a lot more depth and time in cybersecurity, but I know that the tools, the AI tools, you could just automate things and hack away. And like, so the hockey stick is going up. Um, you don't have to develop scripts. You don't have to write these Perl or Python or things like that to just or hack away at a password or do things like that. Like you could just do it with AI. There are some out there. I don't know. I mean, Gronk, I think, is considered like the dirtier version of ChatGPT. I mean, you could probably ask it, like, what's the best way for me to hack a bank? I bet it would give some decent. I don't even want to do it, right? Because I'll get black Suburbans are still up.
Yeah, right.
But I bet it would give some decent advice. And probably put links like here's a dark web website you could go to and buy some tools. So um, I think what people are missing is how easy that stuff can be, and then how important like real experiences. Because, and it sounds biased because we're both graybeard guys, right? And it's like me saying experience, nothing like experience. But at the end of the day, you can use ChatGPT or whatever AI, and you can sort of get shortcuts and find out things, and the information is so available. But it's really only what's there. There's a lot of things that aren't there, and in testimony and things like that, there's stuff in the transcripts. Um, a million years ago, I'll digress a little bit, but I think it'll help prove my point. A million years ago, I worked on, if you remember the OJ trial, the OJ Simpson trial.
Which
Uh,
one? There was a couple.
the
Yeah,
original.
yeah, for sure.
It was being, uh, it was being broadcast on every channel, but I was consulting with Capital Cities ABC, and we were writing a software for a transcript of Peter Jennings, and he was commenting on what was in the court, but then in parentheses and things like that, he would say, OJ Simpson stands up. It would be like in a little paren or like grayed out. And then he would be doing the broadcast. So in transcripts, in legal transcripts or testimony transcripts, that's not there, right? It's only what's said, and you had to be there, that kind of thing. Like you had to be there, and then there's things that get stricken from the record. They get suppressed, and it's gone. And also at the conclusion of almost every case I've worked on that went to trial or ultimately settled, you have to destroy all your documents. And so it's only as good as what you remember. And you sort of attest to it. So if you lived through it, I can tell you a stove is hot a million times. And we could put the document there, but you got to burn your hand to really know what it's like. So
No, I love it. Rob, you've been recognized as an expert witness. You've also been recognized recently in 2025 by Lexology for being both an insurance guru and an investigations subject matter expert. So, congratulations! Does it feel like you get recognized by peers, by the world, for being this golden god of discovery and the expert witness testimony?
yeah, I think I don't know if I go with golden god deity. I'll take, but
Nice.
I think the reason the insurance piece, the recognition for the insurance piece is that often, even in the case of like somebody just putting a thumb drive in and stealing a client list, and that can be an investigation that we ran on. The company that the plaintiff side or will put in a security claim, a cybersecurity claim, cyber insurance claim, and then that policy is paying for the litigation, in not entirely, but in parts. And so I've testified on cases about cybersecurity policies and um, where they may have performed or underperformed. It can be, I had a couple of cases where somebody, the plaintiff said, we spend this exorbitant amount on cybersecurity and everything else, and there's whatever it was, 2% of our annual net income or something, which it's like, okay, but you still suffered breach, so maybe you needed to spend 3%, and it's so you're defending. I found myself defending or attacking. I don't want to go that far, but sort of finding the holes of why it might not be um, payable for cyber insurance. And I've had it on the other side. Like I've done both sides. So that's how I got that recognition. I would not label myself a guru in insurance. Just this one little, you know, uh, sector of it.
Rob, I am super excited for this question because we share a passion for volleyball. I know you have family members who are playing. You and I both have played. I coached for a very long time. So share with me your insights as to how volleyball and cybersecurity overlap.
Okay. I thought about this before I came on here. So just because I knew. And Um, and yeah, it's sweeping the nation. I mean, you were popular, but now it's like the biggest thing ever. And I don't know how much time you spent in like Dog Beach, Del Mar area.
Decent amount, not enough. It's good beach, but it has.
I think we know a couple of folks that were. I think we have a lot of overlap we could talk about afterward. But I think my view on how cybersecurity and volleyball can possibly overlap is the way you're approaching it, like defense setups. So when you have, how are you setting up for defense? And there are traditional things that you're used to, and then it's about adaptability. So you're on one side, and all of a sudden a server comes in and that you haven't seen before, and they've got some weird curve and whatever, and they're all of a sudden they've got 3 points in a row. You say, okay, let's stop. How are we going to defend against this? Let's adjust. Let's make some adjustments and don't just let it keep happening. Um,
Right.
so you got to be adaptable. You got to have a strategy. You've got to understand the strengths and weaknesses of your team. They say, Rick, you can't seem to handle. I'm not suggesting you couldn't handle any serve, but Rick, that serve, they're beating you every time. Like we got to switch out right before they hit it. It's the same thing with the tanks. The attacks are constantly changing. They're constant new things. The latest, well, I don't know if it's the latest because probably a new one 5 minutes ago, but everybody wants to unsubscribe from everything, right? Because you've subscribed to things you don't even remember you did. You get an email and it says, "Are you done with Audible? Because how could you possibly listen to 5,000 books a year?" So when you would get a phishing email that says Chase Bank or Bank of America, you see the misspelling on the top. I'm like, okay, so they want my PIN number and everything. But if you get one that says, okay, from whatever company, and then you go, and it's a bogus one, and the unsubscribe link on the bottom is going to unsubscribe you from Audible or Spotify Premium or whatever it is, you click on that, and that's the phishing link. Like that's the latest one because they're always looking like, what are people clicking on the most? And AI is listening. So that's the volleyball thing is what's working? How are they scoring points? We have to adapt. The other things that I think overlap, training, like physical training in volleyball. There's something that doesn't seem like it's, best way to get better is to play sometimes, but no, there's other things. There's not a lot of cardiovascular involved in indoor, but if a rally starts happening, all of a sudden you see people get gassed really quickly. And they're training in cybersecurity that seems corollary or seems unrelated, but it comes into play in the event of an incident. Like all of a sudden, you've got a bunch of cybersecurity people, they just do pen testing all day. And they have no idea how to image a hard drive correctly or how to pull down data and preserve its metadata to be used in litigation later on or e-discovery. It's great if they can cross-train. So, that's the libero. Like you need somebody who can do other things. And then the word you said before, risk management. There's risk management in volleyball. Like, do I dive right now? Because if I dive for this ball, I'm not going to be able to hit. Like I've got to have my teammates behind me, or at least one teammate, to be able to handle it. It's a calculated risk. Faking stuff. That's red teaming, X teaming, whatever they're calling it now. I saw there was I saw a girl who's doing this thing now. He does a fake spike back set. No one knows how to.
Yeah.
No one knows how to handle it. That directly corresponds to like a cyber attack. Like just came in and got into our network, and it's an attack we've never seen before. The best way to do it is collaboration. Other teams, you've got to travel. You've got to work with other groups. And if possible, through the the ethical hacking. It's drilling. And then learning from those drills. And then I don't know. The last thing I thought about, because we recently moved from Southern California to the Denver area, as the teams get more and more competitive and they start traveling, well, my daughter ends up being an asset in a weird way. It's just not beyond her playing ability. If we get into a tournament and all of a sudden we're playing one of the teams that she played on in Southern California, she's going to know the tendencies of the other side and learn and teach her team. Like, oh, listen, this one does this one does that. I mean, obviously it wears out after pretty quickly. But it's the same thing in cybersecurity. Rotate people out, rotate them into other departments of the company, let them evangelize inside a company of like what cybersecurity is. They're talking to people in marketing that have nothing to do with IT or cybersecurity, but they're evangelizing, having that mindset. Like, do you know that when you do this, you cause a lot of problems for us? And you're going to cost the company money and you can cost reputation, which is really hard to repair. And so IT is not a cost center anymore. It's not IT. It's the CISO department. It's not a cost center. It's
Anymore.
not even
Yeah.
close.
I love the thoughts that you have on that. I'm sure at some point we could nerd out about, the middle blocker being the firewall and name some of the different positions. I love what you mentioned there though about, and this is the United States volleyball doesn't do well. They don't allow players, especially young athletes, to play in multiple positions. When I was coaching, we had a lot of players from South America, Brazil specifically, and they don't allow them to get a specific position until they're about 14 or 15 years old. And all the way through, they actually will rotate. And at one point, you're a setter, at one point, you're passing, at one point, you're a middle hitter, at one point, you're an outside. And so by the time you specialize in whatever you're doing, you're so good at that because you're good at everything else. And I think that's something that we don't do well in cyber. We don't do it well in the United States volleyball arena. And so I
You
feel like
don't do it
that's
well in any youth sports. Like I call it the franchise tag, even though it's when kids are 12 or whatever. Is that they put the franchise tag on a kid at age 11 and say, "That's it. You are like even within." So it's compartmented down further. Even within, okay, you're a volleyball player now. That's it. If you look at in football, college football, Notre Dame, right? They're independent. They don't have conferences giving them rules and so on. Best receiver on that team also played on a national championship lacrosse team. You cannot do that at certain schools. So they'll put a tag on. So look at Bo Jackson, right? If Bo Jackson did cybersecurity, how good he would be at cybersecurity. But they put the tag on them early because they don't want them to get injured doing some other sport or whatever it is, and they want them to focus. But that it ends up backfiring because they can't use those other things. I think you were a basketball player that converted to volleyball, or were you volleyball that converted? There you go. So
yeah.
there's people who have gone in the other direction, but if they put the tag on right away and they say this is what your scholarship is going to be, they did that for volleyball, even within that, and then they say this is your position. And so we were getting around it with some things like I saw kids that you could tell they were rebounders. You could tell they played basketball, and great, let them block all day. But they were like, well, you can't play basketball anymore because we're afraid you're going to turn your ankle. So you have to pick basketball or volleyball. Same thing with cybersecurity. Got to rotate. Go do a TDY, right?
Yeah.
You know that acronym.
Yeah, I know that accurate.
So I think you can take that concept within your cyber team if if you're fortunate enough to have a team.
Yeah. Rob, thank you so much for being on the Cybercrime podcast. This was super fun.
Great. I loved it. Appreciate it. And we could talk volleyball and SOF and other stuff another time.